Hey everyone, welcome to the year update and Q&A video for 2023. Last year was another incredibly busy year for the channel. As a quick recap, I worked once again with Amtrak and Siemens Mobility to give you a first look at Amtrak's new Phase 7 paint scheme debuting on the ALC-42 locomotive fleet, which is under construction in Sacramento, California. Next, it was back to Southern California for a look at several different passenger and freight trains, including the Coaster F59 locomotives in what will likely be their final full year of operation with North County Transit District. Then, it was off to Chicago to see Metro F59 locomotives and some long-distance Amtrak trains. Shortly thereafter, the channel reached a huge milestone of 750,000 subscribers from all over the world. Less than a month later, I was able to publicly announce that former Coaster locomotive 2105, the channel mascot, had been saved for preservation. There wasn't much time to celebrate after that. For just a few weeks later, it was back on the road to see the Union Pacific 4014 Big Boy locomotive, with a brief visit to Montana Rail Link and the Columbia River Gorge along the way. Then, the channel rocketed past 750 million video views. Following this, I made a few more short trips to Oregon to see some steam locomotives and ancient SD9 diesels, and to California to film BART during its 50th anniversary, Santa Fe 3751's return to steam, and Coaster 2105 being moved to a temporary storage location. The year concluded with two special videos marking 20 years since I filmed my very first train on December 27, 2002. Believe it or not, I have even more planned for this year. So let's take a quick look at what's in store for 2023, and then I'll answer some of your questions. To start off, the biggest project I worked on last year was actually not a video. To celebrate 750,000 subscribers to the channel, I worked with both the Southern California Railway Museum in Paris, California, and the Pacific Southwest Railway Museum out in Campo, California, to save former Coaster locomotive number 2105 for preservation. I had a model of this locomotive years ago, which was my inspiration for naming the channel CoasterFan2105 nearly 15 years ago. This was a massive project that took years of planning and hard work, so a huge thank you to everyone involved. The locomotive is currently being stored temporarily by BNSF Railway and will soon move for a final time to the Southern California Railway Museum in Paris, California. I will be returning to California sometime during the first half of this year to document the move. Following the locomotive's arrival at the museum, I will be putting a full video project together on the efforts to save the 2105, as well as sister locomotive 2103, which has been preserved at the Pacific Southwest Railway Museum in Campo. I think this will be an incredibly unique opportunity to give you a behind-the-scenes look at what goes into preserving a piece of rail equipment, and the video will be complete with information on the locomotives and interviews with many of the people involved with the project. I don't have a confirmed date for when the locomotive will be moved, but keep an eye out on the channel page for updated information over the coming weeks. Also, if you have any questions about the 2105 or the efforts to preserve the locomotive that you would like me to address in the video on the project, post those below and I will try to make sure they get answered. In terms of planned uploads, I have several major video projects that will be coming to the channel this year. The first big video I have in the works is a full-length look at the Surf Line, which is the rail corridor that runs from Los Angeles to San Diego for those unfamiliar. This is a project several years in the making. Originally, I had planned to release this video last fall, and at one point I even had it on the schedule, but I decided the video needed some more work before release. I think the extra wait will be well worth it. My goal is to have the video ready to go by March. If it is well received, it may become the pilot for a brand new series of videos detailing various rail lines all over the country. A second major project that is nearing completion is the next video in my long-distance Amtrak train series. I have 3 of these videos that are very close to completion, the first of which I'm hoping to have ready to go by sometime this spring. Last year, I debuted the first in my new series looking at individual freight trains. Episode 1 featured a look at the Bellingham Local, and I have several more videos planned in this series going into 2023. Currently, I have enough footage to complete at least 5 more episodes in this series, with several more in progress. The next step will be putting final scripts together and editing the videos. It is possible that the next episode could be posted as soon as next month. Keep an eye out for updates posted on the channel's community tab. As if those 3 video series weren't enough, I have begun to explore the potential of yet another new video series covering abandoned railroads and railroad equipment. Over the last few years, I have received several requests for videos on abandoned railroads. As of last fall, I have started preliminary research for a tentative first episode of the series. If this is a video series you would like to see on the channel, definitely let me know in the comment section. One other form of new video content I am looking into are short-form videos known as shorts here on YouTube. This is a new direction for video that has become increasingly popular in recent years. I have 2 shorts posted on YouTube already and several more over on my Instagram page, but these are pretty much just individual clips of trains going by. I'm thinking about posting some informative train and railroad themed shorts on one of the days that I don't normally post my long-form videos. I know some people aren't really big fans of this style of content while others are, so if you have any feedback on this idea you'd like to share with me, please post a comment and let me know what you think. I have several new episodes of Train Talk in the works, including a couple of episodes that I promised to complete several years ago. Look for a new episode possibly as soon as February. Continuing another popular video series, Trains Galore will be back this year with some new videos. The 11th episode of Steam Trains Galore, celebrating a decade of the series, will be back in November, and I will hopefully have 1 or 2 other Trains Galore videos earlier in the year. Last but definitely not least, I am planning on doing some more special videos to celebrate 20 years since I began filming trains, as well as the 15th anniversary of the channel on September 20th of this year. I'm not certain what form these videos will take, possibly another look at some of my older videos, including ones I've never posted anywhere online before, or maybe the revival of a popular video series I've previously done on the channel. Now, on to travel plans for the new year. I don't currently have anything confirmed, but I am planning on making several trips this year. The first will likely be to Montana to film Montana Rail Link freight trains for the last time before BNSF Railway takes over that operation sometime this year. I may also venture to northern Montana to catch some of the new ALC 42 locomotives on the Empire Builder. Speaking of the Empire Builder, I will be traveling to Minnesota and Wisconsin later in the winter or early this spring to film the Empire Builder along with a few other railways. As I mentioned before, I will be back in Southern California for when Locomotive 2105 makes its final move to the Southern California Railway Museum. Planning is still in the works for this last move, which is part of the reason I don't have any firm travel plans for the first half of this year. Other travel plans I'm looking at are a long-awaited return to the East Coast and very possibly Canada. Well, that's what I have planned so far for 2023. Now on to some questions. I received a record number of great questions this year, so to make sure I can get to as many people as possible, I'm only going to answer questions related to trains this time, and I will probably only be able to answer a couple questions per person. Alright, let's dive in. What persuades you to go out and railfan, and what advice would you give to newcomers? I like the idea that I'm documenting railroads of the present year. I think someday it'll be neat to have a huge archive of video that I've created of all of these trains, because it tells an interesting story about trains and railroads in North America at this point in time. In terms of advice to newcomers, do what you like and share it with the world. That's pretty much what I did when I was starting out, and it's just things have grown and taken off over the years. So find something that inspires you and go with it. What are your thoughts on the new Siemens Aero trains that Amtrak unveiled a few weeks ago? I think they look neat. We'll have to see what the final cars are like when they're completed in 2026. What steam locomotive did you see operate for the first time this year? Santa Maria Valley 205, Black Hills Central 108, and Craig Mountain number 3. Have you heard about the 200th anniversary celebrations of the first railroad in the world event? I actually had not, so thank you very much for telling me about that. What got you into rail fanning? Watching old train videos produced by companies like Pentrex and Skyfire and wanting to make videos of my own. What was your favorite location to film at while you were in SoFlo? I really liked the overpass at Deerfield Beach. What is your favorite train that you have ever filmed? That's a tough one, honestly. Maybe the Rika and the Glenbrook when they were running together at the Cumbres and Toltec back in 2021. That really was a once-in-a-lifetime event. How do you do these videos in such a short period of time? Well, it is quite a challenge. I work for at least a little bit every day of the week, and many days for more than 12 hours, especially when I'm out on a filming trip during the long part of the year. In order to maintain the weekly schedule, I typically have to edit some of the videos a while in advance, and then I release them over a period of time, especially to cover me when I'm away on a work trip. How have you improved your filming over 20 years? That's a good question, and one that I could spend an entire video discussing, honestly. In short, I've learned a lot more about technique, the trains, and the equipment in terms of the video equipment. I've taken a few film classes over the years and improved my skills, but a fair amount of it was self-taught as well. Do you plan to go international? I'm looking into that possibility right now. Since you did a face reveal at 500,000 subs, was there another milestone you wanted to do it at back then? I think in the back of my mind, the 500,000 subscriber milestone was always when I thought I would do the face reveal. What were your top accomplishments for this year? Working with the 2 museums to save Coaster2105 and working with Amtrak and Siemens on the video of the new 309 ALC42 debut in Phase 7. How much out of all the train footage you record do you actually end up posting in a video? That's a good question. I have no idea what the exact percentage is, but it's probably somewhere in between 50 and 70%. A lot of the stuff that isn't used right away I save for future projects such as the long-distance Amtrak videos. Have you ever recorded any steam trains in Washington? I have filmed a total of 5 operational steam locomotives in Washington. How do you feel about inspiring a new generation of young people to join the railfan community? It's pretty neat, honestly. I'm really happy that so many people enjoy what we've been able to accomplish here as a community over the last few years. It's really something else. What has been your greatest moment in rail fanning in 2022? Either seeing the first run of the ALC42s or 2105 being moved to temporary storage. How long have you been rail fanning? 20 years as of December 2022. I posted a special video last month, so if you haven't seen it yet, go check it out. Who inspired you to start the channel? I don't know if any one person inspired me to create the channel. Even before YouTube, I was interested in making my own videos and sharing them. But when I first discovered the site in 2007, I thought it was really neat that a lot of people from Southern California were posting train videos. What do you think will happen to Coaster 3001 and 3002 when they're retired? I have heard they are going to another operator and will be upgraded to Tier 4. Is there any chance of a Train Talk episode featuring the EMD F125 or other Siemens locomotives? I did a video on the F125 a few years ago, and I've done several on the Chargers at this point. There's a possibility of more in-depth videos on each of those at some point, but probably after they've been in service a little while longer. Would you save all the Genesis locomotives or just scrap them all? Well, I would save a few at museums. Unfortunately, it's not practical to save every single locomotive, but I hope a number of them are sold to second operators. How often are you recognized by crews? Interesting question. I know at least a few of them recognize me at this point. I always try to wave, and it's fun to see familiar faces out there. What was your favorite shot of 2022? This one. What's different with doing YouTube as a job than you originally envisioned? That's a really good question. It's a lot more work than I ever thought it would be. Pretty much every day of the week I'm doing something related to the channel. Either working on videos or filming new material, writing scripts, responding to comments and emails, and then all sorts of other behind-the-scenes activities. It's a lot of fun, though. I really enjoy it. Why did you choose CoasterFan2105 as your channel name? I've covered this a little bit before, but as a quick recap, I had an HO scale model of the locomotive years ago, so it became my favorite in the fleet by default when I was growing up. When I started filming, I saw it many times over the years, including on the first coaster train I rode after I got my first video camera. So it seemed like a good fit when I started my YouTube channel. Why do you like coasters so much, and what are your goals for the YouTube channel? I like Coaster because it was my local commuter railroad for many years, and so I documented it a lot on video for most of its existence. My goal with the channel is to thoroughly document as many railroads from North America and hopefully beyond as I can. Are you going to give away free model trains to every subscriber? Well, I have just over 800,000 subscribers as of the recording of this, so if I gave one model train to each of them and each model cost $10, that would be $8 million. So unfortunately, I don't think that is something I will be able to do. Instead, I like to give back to my subscribers, so to speak, with projects like Saving the 2105, because that's something everyone can enjoy. I'm hoping there will be more opportunities for similar projects like that in the future. Do you think Cajon Pass is cool? Yeah, it's a great place to watch slow-moving freight trains battling the grades. Are you planning on seeing Canadian National 7312 back in operation in Strasbourg? No firm plans, but I'd like to see that and 89 at some point. Do you like the Santa Fe 210-4s? Yeah, they're pretty cool. What is your favorite personal piece of railroad memorabilia? The Nathan K5LA off of Amtrak 293. Do you plan on making any more T1 Trust videos in the future? I don't currently have any plans. The video that I did was in cooperation with the T1 Trust at their request, and they provided almost all of the material I used in the video. So that's the story with that, but I do think it would be fun to do an update on the project at some point. What are your thoughts on 2102 returning to excursion service? It's great news. Will there be a future Train Talk episode on positive train control? Possibly. Do you think PTC will eventually be required for all operable steam locomotives on the main line? As far as I know, it already is. How many Amtrak Dash 8s and Genesis locomotives do you think will be preserved after their eventual retirement from service? I am not sure. There's a lot of resale value just in scrap and parts for each locomotive. I'm hopeful that at least one Dash 8 and a couple GE Genesis locomotives will be preserved, but it's far from a sure thing at this point. Have you ever thought about doing a video on a train ride? I did one onboard video featuring the Auto Train back in 2019, and I may do more in the future. Why did the F59PH and F59PHI get retired? For Surfliner and Cascades, those locomotives were on lease, and the lease expired, so they were sold by EMD to Metra at the end of the lease period. In terms of Metrolink and Coaster, both agencies got funding for new locomotives from a California emissions grant, so they made the decision to replace the units rather than rebuilding them. Do you plan on going to the UK? I would like to visit the UK at some point. I've actually begun to look into the feasibility of traveling to Europe to film, including to the UK, so that process is ongoing. What's your opinion on the retirement of the Series 6 Talgos? They were really cool trains, so I'm disappointed to see them go. What do you think about the new ALC 42 Charger, and will you miss the GE Genesis? They're cool locomotives, and it was pretty incredible to see the assembly process behind them. Any good places to railfan in Washington State? Anywhere along the shore of Puget Sound with a view of the tracks, in particular Edmonds and Stillicum. Will you ever do a video on the Portland and Western? I've started to film at least one, if not several videos on the Portland and Western, so yes. Do a train talk on the Coast Starlight. I did an entire video on the Coast Starlight a few years ago, so I probably won't be doing a train talk episode unless something big changes with the train. If you want to see that, click on the link on the top right corner. When did you first come to the Black Hills Central Railroad? July of 2015. Will Amtrak retire all the P42s, or will Amtrak keep some of them? My guess is eventually they will all be retired. Do you have any idea what's going to happen to the F40 NPCUs after they retire? They'll probably be put up for auction, and they'll go to the highest bidder, either for scrap or repurposed somewhere else. What do you think about the new Amtrak Siemens Venture cab cars? They look neat. I like the new nose design to match the ALC 42 on the Aero train sets. Do you think more passenger trains will switch to electric power like Caltrain is doing? Other than Go Transit in Canada, I don't see it happening anytime soon elsewhere in North America. There has been discussion of electrifying the Surf line, but that would still be years in the future at this point. Can a cab car run without a locomotive behind it? No, a cab car is not a self-propelled unit. It is a standard coach with an operator's cab. If you'd like to learn a little more about cab cars, take a look at my very first episode of Train Talk. Would you do a video on Knott's Berry Farm steam train number 340? I already did one featuring Rio Grande Southern 41 a number of years ago, and I have some really old video of the 340 that I might post at some point too. Have you ever filmed trains in Canada like GO Transit and Via Rail? Years ago, I filmed the Via Rail RDCs on Vancouver Island. If you got the chance to go back in time with your modern camera and technology, what era would you go back to? Either the 1950s transition era from steam to diesel, or the late 1860s to mid-1870s to see the completion and the early days of the Transcontinental Railroad. Did Amtrak retire all AEM 7s back in 2016? Yes, 946 was the last one in service. At the end, it was actually leased to Mark for commuter rail operations on the Penn line, and then it was finally removed from service on August 1st of that year. Will you make a second version of fast diesel trains? I was actually thinking about doing something like that. It's been over 8 years now, so I guess we're about due for a new version in 4K. Where did you go for your first train-related road trip? I went on a short weekend trip in 2005 to Santa Barbara, and after that would probably be San Jose in 2009. In your opinion, which locomotive or cab car has the best K5LA that you've ever filmed, and which is your favorite train horn besides the K5LA? Well, years ago, I really liked the K5LA on coaster cab car number 2303. Other than the K5LA, my second favorite horn would probably be an old cast Nathan P5. How's the progress going on another long-distance Amtrak video? One of them will be done sometime during the first half of this year. I really enjoyed your Train Talk episode on the Seattle Sounder Commuter Railroad. Any plans on making episodes on other commuter railroads in 2023? Yeah, I'd like to cover most of the major commuter railroads eventually, depending on time and how long it takes to gather video. Is it possible to venture to Canada to catch trains? I'm hoping to do that at some point this year. What photography camera do you use? I use a Nikon D850. What's one railroad event that you are looking forward to the most in 2023? I'm not too sure of many that have been announced yet, but I'm really looking forward to 2105 moving to the Southern California Railway Museum. Out of all your years rail fanning, what was one of your most favorite catches of all time? There are really just so many to pick from, it's hard to choose one. But one of my favorites is still the clip of 3751 meeting the 2105. What are your most favorite rail fanning locations so far? Either the Del Mar Cliffs or Stillicum, Washington. Can you make a video about your experience at Rail Fair 99? Possibly. I do have a family photo album from that event. I could possibly put some photos from that together and turn it into a narrated slideshow of sorts. Can you make an episode on rail fanning by location, again to celebrate 20 years? That's actually one of the things I am thinking about doing this upcoming September. Would you be open to interviewing railroad icons for videos? Yeah, did you have anyone in mind? Are you going to make a video about whistles? The whistle episode of Train Talk is one that I've really wanted to put together for a long time now. I was waiting for an opportunity to demonstrate some more whistles for the video, but at this point, I'll probably just try to put together what I have now and finally get it done as soon as I have a chance to write a script. What are your thoughts on hydrogen-powered locomotives? It's an interesting technology, and I will be curious to see how it develops in the coming years. What was your best catch of 2022, and have you ever been to an NRHS convention? Best catch was one of the first runs of the ALC 42, and I have not been to an NRHS convention before. What is your opinion on the main 2-foot railways? I think they're super cool, and I really hope I have a chance to see them at some point, maybe later this year. Have you ever watched other train YouTubers? Yeah, I watch them fairly regularly, actually. Will you ever do another Trucks Galore video? I don't have any current plans, but never say never. Would you film the Canadian Pacific Painesville sub in 2023? That is on the list. How many heritage units have you caught in 2022? Let's see. 8 to 13, depending on if you count the other commemorative units or not. Do you have plans to visit Stockton and film trains on the Diamond? Also, what is the current status of 2105? No current plans as of right now, and for 2105, it's in temporary storage in Commerce, California, and will hopefully be moving to the museum sometime during the first half of this year. Can you do a video about the Metra SD70 Max sometime this year? I will definitely be doing a video on them once enough of the locomotives are in service. Will you ever come back to Albuquerque and Santa Fe, New Mexico to film Rail Runner? If I'm ever out in New Mexico for Santa Fe 2926, there's a very good chance I will film more Rail Runner too. What's your take on Amtrak retiring the P40s? Given that the Genesis series is 20 to 30 years old at this point, I'm not really too surprised it's happening. Most equipment lasts in passenger service in about that time window, 20 to 30 years. Are you thinking about visiting San Bernardino to film the Arrow? I filmed it a little bit back in November, and I will hopefully film more of it a little later this year. How do you feel about the GE E60, and would it have been more successful if it was a 4-axle instead of 6-axle design? They were neat-looking locomotives. I think the truck design was indeed an issue with them, so it is possible that a 4-axle design would have worked better. Which do you think is better for filming trains, camcorders or mirrorless cameras? I don't know too much about mirrorless yet, but both look like good options depending on what you want to do. What camera settings do you like to use when you're filming? That can really vary greatly depending on the weather, the time of day, what you're filming or photographing. For photos of moving trains on a nice sunny day at a distance, I try to keep my settings at 400 ISO, 1/1000th of a second, and f8 or better. What do you think will happen to the P42s when the ALCs completely take over? Most of them will probably be sold at auction. Have you filmed trains on the Stampede Yakima Valley subs before? Not yet, but hopefully soon. Even though the Siemens ALC-42 locomotives have entered service on Empire Builder, do you know how long it will be until they replace the entire GE fleet? I think the contract for all 125 locomotives runs through the end of 2025, but even at that point, there will still be active Genesis units both on corridor trains in the Northeast and elsewhere in the system. My best guess is that the GE fleet will probably last through the end of the decade. Do you plan on making another top 10 video in 2023, possibly about your favorite passenger locomotives with honorable mentions? Yeah, I've wanted to do another top 10 for a while now. Quite possibly at some point this year. Do you plan on uploading another non-train video in 2023 or sometime in the future? I was originally going to do Airplanes Galore last year, and I put most of the project together, but I felt like I didn't have enough material to really do the video justice. Will the ALC-42E be a standalone locomotive like the P32AC-DM? As I understand it, the ALC-42E will pretty much be the same as the long-distance ALC-42, but it will be able to receive electricity from a trailing passenger car for the traction motors. They are planning on using them with either a pantograph on top of the first trailing passenger car for travel up the Northeast Corridor, or with a special battery compartment in the first coach, and those will be used for movements in and out of Penn Station and along the Empire Corridor. I don't think there will be any kind of electrical pickup equipment mounted directly to any of the new Amtrak Charger locomotives, but the new versions that are going to be built for the New York MTA will have a third rail shoe. What do you think of the IRM purchasing a CNW SD50? I think it's good to see some newer diesels make it into preservation. What is or was your favorite horn owned by Ed Long? Not sure, possibly the M5. What extinct steam locomotive do you want to see returned to the rails? Southern Pacific GS2 or 3 and the New York Central Hudson. Do you ever plan to do more rail fanning in southern Florida or in Florida in general? Yes, I would like to come back. What are your thoughts on the new Metro SD70s? They're neat looking locomotives. When will you make the West Commuter Rail video? Hopefully later this year. Will you be able to rail fan in eastern Nebraska? Probably eventually. What are your thoughts on Maine Central 470? I am excited to see the restoration coming along. How does it feel to know that you have been doing this for 20 years? It's a little surreal to think that I've been doing video for that long. Sometimes it doesn't feel like it's been that long, and other days it feels like it's been even longer. How far is the Bellingham subdivision to you? It's pretty close. Have you met any other rail fans along the Bellingham subdivision? I've met a couple of them over the last few years. What is your favorite tourist railroad? Cumbres and Toltec or the Durango and Silverton? What's the best tourist railroad in Washington? Well, seeing as there is currently only one that operates on a regular basis, the Northwest Railway Museum. Have you ever visited or rail fanned Hood River? Yes, check out some of the videos on my channel. Do you ever plan on going to Canada or another country to shoot trains? I'm hoping to at least do a little filming in British Columbia this year, and hopefully to Eastern Canada too. What do you have planned for the future of your channel? For now, I'm just going to keep things going as is with several new video series ideas I mentioned in the beginning of this video, and possibly some other new ones I'm looking into as well. Have you ever thought of filming Shinkansen trains in Japan? Yes, I've considered it. What was the longest train you've seen? I've seen a number of freight trains over 200 cars over the years, but I'm not sure what the longest one was. Thoughts on Amtrak long-distance trains out of San Diego, i.e. extend the Coast Starlight? At one point, there actually were a few through cars on the San Diegan that were placed onto the Coast Starlight. I'm not sure how practical it would be these days, since LA is such a big hub. Favorite train horn? Nathan K5LA. Were you surprised by how San Diego has changed since your first visit on your last visit for the 20th anniversary video? Yeah, every time I come back it seems like a fair amount has changed, but that's true with pretty much everywhere I've been. Would you ever come back to Chicago and railfan other lines? I'm sure another trip to Chicago is in my future. Thoughts on Caltrain electrification? It's an interesting project, but I will miss the F40s. Would you ever railfan in Canada or Mexico? Hopefully both. Do you plan to come and film SMART? I've thought about doing a video on SMART, but no firm plans yet. Would you ever do a video on quarter-scale railroads like Traintown in Sonoma? I did one on the Redwood Valley Railway a number of years ago, but I'm open to doing more videos on miniature railways in the future. Are you ever going to come to Colorado to catch the H2 SD70 Max on some of our locals? Well, I have a lot of friends who live in Colorado now, so that's always a possibility. Have you filmed any F-unit locomotives? I have filmed a few of them. Do you know when you plan on seeing the Metrolink Aero train? I already have. Hopefully I'll get another chance to see it this year. Will you see CP2816 when it makes an excursion from Canada to Mexico? I will make every effort to see CP2816 when it runs. How should you start your first railfanning YouTube channel? What equipment should you use? I'd recommend starting off with a cell phone if you don't want to get too invested into equipment right away, and then try filming some of the things you like to see and just see where it goes. What's your opinion on the SC44s and F125s? Which one is better in your opinion? I'm honestly not sure because I don't have any inside technical data from either of the locomotives to compare performance-wise. What train talk videos do you have in store for 2023? Probably a few more on different types of locomotives, maybe one or two on specific railroads and a few others. Right now I'm putting together a script for a video on DMUs. What would be one engine that you could restore or rebuild? Well, hopefully CoasterFan2105 at some point, but there are many others that would be nice to see restored too. Can you do any more Commuter Trains Galore videos? There may be a part 3 at some point, but that's probably a ways off. I'd like to do second parts of some of the other ones or some new ideas first. Is YouTube your full-time job? If not, what else do you do and how often do you watch trains? YouTube is part of my full-time job. I also do other video and photo work and license out my video archive for various projects. I can't tell you exactly how often I film trains, but it's a rare week when I don't film at least one day. Opinions on Metrolink. It's a cool commuter operation. When are you going to Fullerton again? Probably sometime this spring. What's the rarest locomotive that you've ever seen? That's kind of a hard question to answer. Years ago, I saw some BNSF SD9s on a freight train. That was pretty rare. But I've also seen old 1875 built wood-burning steam locomotives pulling a freight train, which is also very rare, and a steam-powered rotary snowplow. That's about as rare as it gets. If 3751 starts doing excursion runs again, will you post it on your channel that you are going to railfanning? If I can, yes. It's sometimes difficult to know well in advance because my schedule frequently changes. Can you do a video series on abandoned railroad lines? Take a look at the beginning of the video and be sure to let me know what you think. What made you decide to film trains in 4K? Because the video quality is significantly better, and I changed to 4K as part of the 10-year anniversary of the channel. Are you gonna go to Wisconsin sometime? I did last year, and I almost certainly will this year too. Any plans to visit MRL? Yes, most likely in February, March, or April. Favorite ALC 42 loco? 301 Are you excited for Amtrak Aero? Yes. Will you ever go back to the BNSF Chicago sub, aka the racetrack? When the SD70s enter service, yes. Since the C40 LFR is retiring, will you film their last days? Unfortunately, right now, I don't currently have any plans for more bus videos, but that might change in the future. Any updates on 2105? 2105 is being stored safely and will hopefully be moved to the museum in the next couple months. Do you think that Amtrak will replace the aging Superliner cars in the next few years with newer Siemens passenger equipment? I'm not sure who will win the bid, but it's definitely possible. What inspired you to make the series Steam Trains Galore? I wanted to make a compilation video of several different steam trains that I'd filmed because it was something I really hadn't seen on YouTube that much at that point. Is the musician S.J. Armstrong related to you? Yes. Check out the album he just released on Spotify or Apple Music. Are there any galores coming up? For sure Steam Trains 11 at the end of the year, and hopefully at least 1 or 2 others as well. Are you going to do a 15-year special on Frontrunner? I don't have any plans to yet, but I will look into it. Will you do trains in the Rocky Mountains? I did a video on the Rocky Mountaineer in late 2021. Do you like the new Chargers on Surfliner, Coaster, and Metrolink? They're neat, but I miss the F40s. Out of your 20 years rail fanning, what's the most memorable experience you've had? Probably seeing the big boys' first excursion to Ogden, Utah in 2019. That was pretty cool. Why does Metrolink have ex-Go Transit liveries? A number of years ago, Metrolink leased some locomotives that used to belong to Go Transit. They have all since been returned from lease. What is the rarest unit in the BNSF fleet? Probably the former Santa Fe GP40X fleet. What are your thoughts on Coaster's plans for the new Bombardier cab cars? I'm honestly a little surprised that they didn't end up getting enough to replace all or most of their older cab cars like Senator and Ace did. Do you have any plans to railfan overseas? No firm plans, but I am actively researching it. Behind the scenes making of your videos? I can look into that. Will you do a Diesel Trains Galore 3? That's definitely a possibility in the near future. Will you come to India to film trains? Maybe at some point, but I currently don't have any firm plans. Are you going to make an 800,000 subscriber special? I'm probably not going to make a separate video. The project to save Coaster2105 was the big thing I did for 750,000 subscribers, so when the video comes out on that project, that will kind of be like a 750 or 800,000 subscriber special video. Will you ever make a short video of the Campo Train Museum and its small passenger trains, as well as possibly collaborate? I would like to do a video on Campo at some point, and I'm always open to at least discussing the idea of working with other groups on various video projects like I did with the T1 Trust in 2021. When are you going to railfan trains in Torrance? Maybe next time I'm in Southern California. Have you been to any places with live steam railroading like Chula Vista, etc.? Yes, I've been to Chula Vista, LALS, and OCME a number of years ago. Who do you think did the best at manufacturing locomotives? That's really tough to say. Manufacturers had different strong suits, and most built very successful locomotives as well as ones that weren't so great. It also depends on what point in history you're talking about. For many decades, EMD was the dominant manufacturer, and more recently it has been GE and now Wabtec. What is your favorite heritage or special unit? 184. Any plans to come to Kansas to railfan? No immediate plans on returning to Kansas, but I'd like to. What is your opinion on UP donating 3985, 5511, and 6936? I'm happy that Union Pacific donated those locomotives, and I think they will have a good new home. Are the state-supported Amtrak routes partially owned by the state Department of Transportations that operate them? At this point, all of the intercity trains outside of the Northeast Corridor are funded by the states. I'm not sure what the exact percentage is, but I think in most cases now, most if not all the operational expenses are covered by the states and not Amtrak. Will you make a video with every single passenger train in America? I don't currently have any plans to do that, but I wouldn't be able to do it until I've at least filmed every single one. What are your thoughts on Southern Pacific 1744, and what is your favorite 484 locomotive? I'm glad to see 1744 has a good new home, and Southern Pacific 4449. Do you think commuter trains are doing a better job at pulling passengers than Amtrak? That's a difficult comparison to make because they really serve different purposes. Do you like CSX? Yes. Was your first YouTube channel name CoasterFan2105? If not, what was it? My first YouTube channel was CoasterMike2105. I opened that one on December 27th, 2007. How do you feel about the new cab cars for Ace and Coaster? They're alright. Favorite holiday train? The CP holiday train. Have you played Trains Railroad Simulator 2022? I played the old 2006 edition a number of years ago. Do you like Amtrak Phase 6 or 7 better? Phase 7. When are you going to ride the Canadian from Toronto to Vancouver? I don't know, but that looks like it would be a really fun trip. When is there a time for you to discuss the high-speed train in California? I'm not sure. Maybe as they get closer to finishing the first operating segment? When there's a chance in the future, will you be discussing about Amtrak Aero? I'm sure I will eventually. Opinion on 822 retirement? It's too bad. That was one of my favorite heritage units. I heard that you can't replace a locomotive's old prime mover with a new one. Is that true? You can replace prime movers just fine. The issue is that California does not allow locomotives that have been disabled as part of the Carl Moyer grant program to be repowered with anything less than a Tier 4 compliant engine. What advice do you have for aspiring railfanners? I would say get started with basic equipment and work your way up. If there are particular trains or railroads of interest to you, study them and try to document them as best you can. And then at the same time, learn about different video or photo techniques and advance your skills. Did you know there's an app where you can track heritage units? Yes. Did you go see 3751 when it was in Fullerton this September? Also yes. Which Amtrak heritage unit is the first one you saw? Amtrak 145 in February of 2011. What's your favorite freight train company? Also, what's your favorite type of Amtrak train? BNSF and the F40. What is your favorite Caltrain locomotive? 915 because it has a nice new coat of paint and no bicycle car placard on the nose. Also, I got to see two friends of mine who work for Caltrain running it a couple years ago. What happened to Norfolk Southern GE-8.5? I think they were all retired. What are your thoughts on the CP and KCS merger? I'm honestly not too surprised. There had been talks of KCS merging with another railroad for quite some time. Which is your favorite streamlined steam locomotive, 4449 or 611? And would you like to see both 4449 and 611 running side by side? 4449 and sure. Do you have a scanner and what type do you use? Also, would you film any of the locals in San Diego? I do. The model is a BC125AT. I might film the locals in San Diego, but the problem is that they pretty much all run at night. Have you ever considered catching the Chesapeake and Delaware Southern secondary in New Jersey? I didn't know about that, but it sounds interesting. Will you come back to Yosemite Mountain Sugar Pine Railroad? Maybe at some point, but no plans. Favorite European locomotive? Flying Scotsman for steam and the Euro Sprinter for electric. Not sure on the diesels. What is your opinion on the new Metrolink Aero trains? They're pretty neat. It's nice to see regular train service to Redlands again. Are you curious about doing some live streams? I've thought about doing live streams before, but I'm not sure how I would go about doing it. What are your thoughts on the Venture cars? I haven't been inside one of the completed ones yet, but I'd like to see. Will you ever film the Chicago line near Toledo, Ohio? Possibly. Will there be a time where you will be able to see Nickel Plate Road 765? I sure hope so. What is it like to ride on an Amtrak train? It's fun. I'll have to do a more thorough video talking about it sometime. How do you find good spots to get shots? Well, there are several different ways. Sometimes I do my own research using a combination of satellite and street views and exploring locations in person, and other times I look through photos or videos of popular locations on the internet and I determine how to get to those spots. How often do they run Horizon sets on the Surfliner? Those cars were permanently removed from Surfliner service in March of 2020. How do you find freight frequency and symbols? Talking to other people who know about it in various heads-up groups on the internet. What are America's newest trains working on the network? Probably the Siemens Charger series. Is it true that America's railroads are mainly built for massive cargo trains. Private freight hauling companies own the vast majority of the national rail network, so it is very much a freight-oriented system outside of the Northeast Corridor and a few other areas. Can you come to England one day? I am hopeful that I will be able to go soon. What is your favorite passenger coach? Bud lightweight cars from the 1950s. What is your favorite international locomotive? Hard to pick one. Flying Scotsman in the UK and probably the Victorian Railways J-Class for Australia. What do you think of 3751 running again? Also, what do you think of Coaster's new livery? It's great to see 3751 running again, and the new livery is okay, but I liked the old one a lot better. Have you ever caught anything significant in the background on camera while waiting for trains? For the most part, just wild animals. What is your favorite CSX Heritage unit or specially painted engine? CSX-1 in the Baltimore and Ohio livery. Will you do a trip to Indiana in the coming years? Possibly this year. Do you have any favorite train documentaries you watched as a kid? Daylight Express by Skyfire. What electric locomotives would Coaster use if they converted to electric? That's so far off that it's really hard to say because there will probably be different locomotive or EMU models available by then. What do you think it'll be like for the older locomotives from San Diego in 2023? Well, 2103 will be at Campo, 2105 will be in Paris, and the F-59s will probably be retired at some point this year. Will you ever consider returning to Minnesota to Railfan? That should be happening during the first half of this year. What equipment do you use to record trains? I use a Canon XF400 video camera and a Manfrotto O28B tripod. Are you ever going to continue the Wooden Train series? I would like to when I can. What's been your best year of rail fanning? Probably 2019. If you had infinite money, what locomotives would you restore and put back into service? Steam locomotive-wise, I'd probably say the Southern Pacific Cab Forward or SP4460, maybe the C&O Allegheny. How often do you go rail fanning? I typically see trains a minimum of once a week, but it's usually much more often than that. What is your favorite train? Southern Pacific's Coast Daylight. Have you ever thought about doing train spotting in Japan? Yeah, I have. It sounds like fun. What is your favorite route? The Surfline or BNSF's Scenic Subdivision from Seattle to Wenatchee. Also, any tips for a growing rail fan? As for tips, see some of the questions that I answered previously in this video. Are you planning to see the new Amtrak AWVR Liberty when it enters service? Yes, I'd like to. Will you go to the East Coast in 2023? I am planning on it. What are your favorite heritage units? Amtrak 184 and 301. What are your favorite train companies? Southern Pacific and Santa Fe. What are your opinions on the AWVR Liberty's design? It's a neat looking design. What's your favorite commuter railroad other than Coaster? Sounder. What is the rarest train or locomotive you've seen in 2022? Portland and Western 1501, a 1952 built SD7. What is your opinion on the Amtrak Phase 7 paint scheme? I like it and it works well with the new Aero cars too. What is your favorite Amtrak Cascades NPCU? 90340. Have you thought of filming Durango and Silverton 478 and 493? Yes, I wanted to film both of them when I was in Durango in 2021, but unfortunately 493 was out of service. When are you going to post a video of the regular excursions at the Northwest Railway Museum? I'm not sure yet, but it would be a neat video to do at some point. Do you have any favorite model train brands? Rapido, Scale Trains, and Kato. Favorite North American EMU? The SEPTA Silverliner 4. What will happen to the original Caltrain F40s? My guess is that they will be sold off. Possibly some will go to other operators, hopefully at least one to a museum. Will you ever come back to Utah to Railfan? Definitely. Do you think you'll travel out of the country to film trains? Hopefully at least once by the end of this year. Favorite steam locomotive? 4449. What railroad, passenger or freight, has the nicest paint scheme? Historically, I'd have to say the Southern Pacific Daylight. What's your favorite Union Pacific steam locomotive? UP 4014. When can you do the Michigan Royal Oak Wolverines 351 and 355? I filmed one Wolverine train at Royal Oak back in 2019, and I'm not sure when I will be back. What would you say is your favorite major USA railroad for passenger Amtrak and for freight BNSF? Can I use a CB radio to tell when trains are coming by? Probably not. Most people use scanners these days. 425 or 2102, they're both neat. What is your favorite Amtrak train? Either the Coast Starlight or the Empire Builder. What are your favorite trains to Railfan in the Bay Area, Ace, and Capital Corridor? What is your advice for someone looking to getting into making train videos? These days, I would probably just start out with a cell phone for taking video, and if you decide to go into dedicated video equipment, you can do that later. Familiarize yourself with rail lines in your area and find some safe places where you can film the trains passing by. Passenger trains are in general a lot easier to film because they run on a published timetable, and many passenger services even have real-time train trackers, so you don't have to wait for long periods of time for freight trains or buy a scanner. What train channels other than your own do you enjoy watching most? Honestly, there are a lot of good channels out there if you look around for them. High Iron and Amtrak Guy 365 both have interesting commentary videos on certain railroad subjects. Distant Signal, Delay and Block, Sea Vision, Michael Loves Trains, and Big Deal all have a lot of great contemporary train videos. And there are a lot more out there too with some excellent content if you look around. Do you have a favorite high-speed train besides the Acela Express? Probably the 1980s version of the original TGV. What steam locomotive do you look forward to seeing this year? Probably Reading and Northern 2102 or East Broad Top number 16. Why do you like the AEM7 locomotives so much? I think they look cool. Other than 2105, which is your favorite F40? Currently, probably Amtrak 281 at the California State Railroad Museum. If you can paint one ALC 42 into a paint scheme, what would you paint it to? Maybe Amtrak-wise, Phase 5, just because I think it would be interesting to see how it would look for comparison. Other schemes, maybe the SP Daylight. Are you going to see 3751 and 2926 this year? If they do excursions this year and I don't have any conflicts, I will try. Are you going to Railfan Brightline when the Orlando station opens? That is in the works. What is your favorite BC rail locomotive? The General Electric C40-8M, and if you want to be a little bit more specific, I'll say locomotive 4623 because I've actually seen that one in service. What's your favorite obscure diesel type? I can't think of any in particular at the moment. Maybe the narrow gauge DL535s if you count those. Do you have a job? If so, what job do you work on? The YouTube channel is part of my business, Mike Armstrong Media. That is what I do for work. What's your favorite commuter train? Sounder and Coaster. Favorite discontinued passenger train? The Coast Daylight. Favorite extinct diesel locomotive? The GE P30CH. What other freight and passenger diesel locomotives from GE do you like? I like the EMD F40PH, F7, SD9, and F45. And for GE, I like the P42DC, -8, and the U25B. Do you Railfan Oregon City? If yes, then you should go back. I've been there once before, and I will probably be back at some point. Do you plan on coming to the 24 Hours in Saginaw event in 2023? I haven't heard of that event before, so I'll have to look into it. Do you know of any Southern Pacific GP35 diesel locomotives that are operational or able to view? None off the top of my head. I think a number of them are still in regular service with other freight railroads. Favorite spot on the Surfliner route? The Del Mar Cliffs. Have you ever been to Horseshoe Curve or Riley's Railhouse? I don't know what Riley's Railhouse is, but I haven't actually been to Horseshoe Curve. I've been really close in the general area, but I haven't been to the curve itself. What's your favorite train in 2022? The La Mirada Local moving Coaster 2105 to a temporary storage location. What's your favorite Union Pacific Heritage unit? UP 1983. What is your favorite Amtrak locomotive? Amtrak 509. What's your favorite type of diesel locomotive? The EMD F40PH. Do you like EMD or GE locomotives? I like both, and I think both companies have produced various well-performing locomotives over the years. What are your top 3 favorite steam whistles? Southern Pacific 6-chime, Santa Fe 6-chime, and the Rio Grande 5-chime. How did you become a rail fan? I watched a lot of the available train videos as a kid, and I was disappointed that there weren't very many on the coaster, so I wanted to make my own, which after years of work I finally did with TSG Multimedia in 2011. What was your favorite Railfan trip you went on in 2022? Going to see UP 4014 last July. Have you watched Unstoppable? Yes. Which steam locomotive do you prefer? $8.44 or $39.85? $39.85. What was your favorite passenger train and freight train catch of 2022? The first run of the ALC 42 for passenger and the Portland and Western SD7 for freight. What will you do when you hit 1 million subscribers? That's a good question. I've been trying to figure that out, actually. I did the 2105 project for the 750,000 milestone, so what should I do for 1 million? I'm open to ideas. Well, that does it for the 2023 year update and Q&A. Thanks for joining me. There are a ton of awesome new videos I have in the works for this year, and if that isn't enough, soon you will be able to see the channel mascot of sorts for yourself at the Southern California Railway Museum. A big thank you to all of you for getting the channel to the landmark 750,000 and now over 800,000 subscribers and over 800 million video views. It's really nothing short of incredible to see the community of train and railroad enthusiasts we've built here over the last decade and a half. With the preservation of 2105 for the 750,000 subscriber mile mark, I guess I better get started on plans for the next milestone. As always, a big thank you to all my supporters on Patreon. As a reminder, if you have any feedback on any of the video ideas or anything else I mentioned, leave me a comment down below. If you're new to the channel, you're always more than welcome to subscribe and select the Receive All Notifications option so you're always alerted whenever I post to YouTube. For more great railroad-themed content, check out my other social media pages. I'll be back next Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific time for an all-new railroad-themed adventure right here on the YouTube channel. That's it for now. Until next time, I'm Mike Armstrong. I'll see you down the line. Thanks for watching.